Hi, welcome back to Earth Science class. Today we're going to discuss the different properties that minerals have. I actually have my whole mineral collection back there for a lab on mineral properties that I just got done filming, and that'll be the next video after this one for you to check out, where we actually get to look at personally the properties that minerals have. But we're going to introduce those very shortly in this video. So, when observing minerals, I guess what I should start off with is why should we care about the properties of minerals? Well, the properties themselves are what allow us to distinguish one mineral from the next, because there are so many different minerals, around 5,500, that so many of them look very close to each other. But we still need to be able to distinguish them because they all have their own unique name. So by looking at the properties they have, this helps us piece by piece, by looking at one property and then the next. This helps us narrow it down until we're left with, hopefully, just one mineral where we narrow it down to. So, let's get started. First thing we can look at is the color. Color is like the most visibly obvious property of a mineral, but it's not a very useful property. Because, first of all, one mineral, such as quartz, can be many different colors because of just tiny amounts of impurities that are included in it. And also, there are only so many colors, so there are hundreds of minerals that are blue, for example. Now, it does help you narrow it down a little bit. We go from a sample size this big to this big, perhaps, which is a start. And that's why we have to look at multiple different properties before we can go from this to one single item. As I said, color is not super useful. Case in point, everything you see here is quartz. There's jasper and leopard skin, frog skin, tiger eye, amethyst. Can't remember the other names, but because of just little impurities, I think there's citrine on there. Because of little impurities, it makes the same mineral all these different colors. So sometimes color is almost a dead giveaway, but usually it's not. It just helps us narrow it down a little bit. And here's just more examples of very colorful minerals. Similar to color is what we call streak. So when you take a mineral and you rub it on a very hard surface like porcelain, it creates sort of a powder of material. So for quartz, for example, the reason streak is useful is quartz will streak if you can get it to streak. It's a very hard material. But if you can get it to do so, it'll streak just like a white, chalky, colorless color. That's what its streak looks like. Even though quartz comes in all of these different color varieties, it will always streak just one color. So that helps us out a little bit. Sometimes the streak really surprises you. So hematite, for example, will streak this really rusty, reddish brown maroon color, even though the mineral itself looks kind of like graphite, looks like metal. Luster is the way in which light reflects off of the surface of a mineral. So some minerals, the light just passes right through them. Others, they absorb the light completely. Other minerals, the light is reflected in a metallic way off of their surface. And strictly speaking, there are only two kinds of luster. Metallic, which they look like metals, duh, or non-metallic, but there are many different non-metallic lusters. So here's metallic. This is some pyrite. If it's very shiny, and usually they're gray, but if it's very shiny and looks like some sort of metal, then it's metallic. It's a dead giveaway. Diamonds, so I'm gonna show you a bunch of different non-metallic lusters. Why are diamonds so valuable? Because it's not because they're rare. Diamonds are actually pretty common out there. They just don't sell very many of them at a time to keep the value really high. Well, diamonds are transparent, like quartz is. But when we look at the quartz here and compare it to the diamond, there's a really dramatic difference. Diamonds, they refract light. So this is called a brilliant luster or adamantine luster. just like a prism, it takes white light and it breaks it into the full spectrum, the Roy G. Biv spectrum at least. And so we see a kaleidoscope, a rainbow inside of that diamond. Whereas quartz and rubies also, they are glassy or vitreous. Light just simply, the light can get bent, but the light waves never refract where they separate. They can just be bent and change direction. So this is glassy or vitreous. This is what you call resinous. That's sulfur, so it looks kind of like plastic, I guess. This is a greasy mineral, so its surface looks wet, but that's because it's just very reflective, but not in a metallic way. So it's reflective, but it still looks like a rock underneath. That's greasy. And this is pearly, which is, if you would shine a laser onto this, you'd see the laser light actually gets absorbed partially. It'll glow a little bit, but at the same time, it's very reflective. So it's absorptive and reflective at the same time. That's pearly. One of the other pretty awesome things about minerals is the crystals that they form. So atoms, the minerals are made of a specific chemical composition, and the atoms that join together can only bond to each other in certain ways. It's non-random. And that non-random pattern on the macro scale reveals to us, or is revealed to us, in the crystal shapes that these things take. So I'm not worried about memorizing all the different ones, but these are just examples of them. So these all look man-made, but they're not. You will naturally find these in this state. So the pyrite, and that's actually doing what we call twinning, where one crystal is growing out of the other. I believe that's a piece of fluorite that's octahedral, so it's like an 8-sided dice. Calcite is prismatic, I believe, or it's like a rhombus, a rectangle that's tilted. Then we have some hexagonal pieces on the very bottom. Again, those are natural, not machined or shaped by human hands. Maybe just polished a little bit to make them look nice, but naturally shaped. Hardness is, you test hardness by whether or not you can scratch something. So diamond is the hardest material by far, and this is sort of a random scale, but the Mohs scale just places minerals in a hierarchy of hardness, and these are the typical ones that are used. So a diamond will scratch any material. If we go to the middle, number 6, that's orthoclase feldspar. Orthoclase will scratch the surface of apatite, number 5, but it will not scratch the surface of quartz. So you can, if you have these samples, or you can use everyday materials as well. If you try to find a material and you're like, well, I can't tell if this is quartz or some other transparent, glassy looking mineral. Well, try to scratch it with a steel nail. If you can't scratch it, then that doesn't tell you for sure that it's quartz, but it will rule out the other material. So we are, again, shrinking our sample size. Similar to the crystal pattern is cleavage. So when a material cleaves, when a mineral cleaves, that means when you break it, it leaves a perfectly flat surface. Typically, the everyday things we interact with in our day-to-day lives, when they break totally randomly. But minerals won't do that. At least a lot of minerals won't. So muscovite or mica, for example, when you break it, it leaves 2 perfectly flat faces. So we say it has cleavage in one direction. Feldspar, if you look carefully, if you try to break it, it will leave perfectly flat sides on 4 of its sides, but the other 2 faces will be random. So that's just cleavage in 4 directions, or 2. Actually, let me go back. This is cleavage in 1 direction. It leaves a top and a bottom. Cleavage in 2 directions, leaves 4 sides. Perfect cleavage, like what we see here with galena. Cleavage in 3 directions means all sides, no matter what. If you smashed that with a hammer, all of the sides that it would leave would have perfectly flat surfaces. Here's another example of the same sort of thing. Now, it's never perfect, right? It's not going to break into a perfect cube. We're just saying that when it breaks, it leaves mostly flat, perfect faces. Minerals that don't cleave, they fracture. So quartz, for example, when you break it, it breaks randomly like glass. And that's mostly because quartz really doesn't have any weak spots where it can be manipulated and where you can take advantage of that or whatever and exploit it, is the word I'm looking for. So it doesn't happen with those minerals. And then finally, there's density. So because minerals are, the gist of this is each mineral has its own specific chemical composition. So for example, hematite and galena look really similar to each other. They both just look like silver metal substances. But galena is lead with sulfur. So, and hematite is iron and oxygen and maybe one or two other things. So if you had those minerals, if you held both of them, one is going to feel way heavier than the other because it has lead in it. It's way more dense. So this can be used to find the purity of a material, or it can just be used to compare two materials side by side. There are some other unique properties that minerals have. You will see those in the lab. Some minerals glow a really surprising color under UV light, for example. It's called fluorescence. Other minerals have a property of elasticity, so they can actually be bent and then returned back to their original shape. So hopefully you check out that video, and thanks for watching.